One more time, I just want to say welcome. My name is Randy Zucker. I'm the interim film festival director for the New Jersey Jewish Film Festival, and I'm thrilled to be here with you this afternoon. We're recording this Zoom for all ticket holders, film goers, and sponsors to watch at their leisure. But we are so happy for those of you who are able to join us live this afternoon. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Abby Meth-Cantor. Abby is one of the co-chairs of the New Jersey Jewish Film Festival and has been for the past several years. Abby served in a number of editorial posts at the New Jersey Jewish News, including arts and managing editor for over 20 years. So it is with my great pleasure to turn it over to Abby, who will speak to you and introduce our special guest today. Hi, Abby.
Hi, thank you, Randy. Hello, everybody. And welcome to Barak Heymann. There he is in Tel Aviv. Barak has been directing and producing documentaries for TV and cinema for more than 15 years. And the independent film company he and his brother Tomer set up, called Heymann Brothers Films, has produced over 30 documentaries and some as international co-productions. Their films have premiered in many festivals worldwide, and they have won many prestigious awards for their works. Barak also teaches in film schools in Israel and has a number of ongoing projects, which I hope we'll hear about later on. High Maintenance, I hope everybody has had a chance to see it. If not, please do. It's the story of the legendary Dani Karavan, who has created nearly 100 environmental installations all across the world. He's won many, many prestigious international art awards. And in everything he did, you can see reflected his radical politics of humanitarianism and equal justice and peace. In the film, we see that even at a late age, he was not satisfied. He is why the film is called High Maintenance. And it's what he demanded of his works as well. He really was a little bit peeved at the upkeep or lack of upkeep, which I think was very interesting since he has 100 pieces all across the world. Who's going to monitor that? He was also in this film, you can see he's beginning to feel the effects of his advanced age, and he's annoyed because of the political climate in Israel, and that's driving him crazy. And he becomes embroiled in a political and artistic conflict over one of his commissions, which we'll also, I hope, have some more insight on. High Maintenance won Best Editing Award in its world premiere at the 2020 Jerusalem Film Festival. It had its international premiere at the 2021 Hot Docs Film Festival. It won Best International Feature Documentary Award at the Josie Film Festival in South Africa, and was the official closing film of the Docs Barcelona 2021 festival. So Mazal Tov on all those awards and accolades, well deserved. I myself think that they were well deserved. So how to begin? There's so much to talk about with this wonderful film, but I have to ask, was that you on whose voice we hear? And if so, were you the one being scolded, and have you since familiarized yourself with Guernica?
Yes, it was me, and it's still me. And by the way, I'm very happy and excited to announce that we have additional award for this very beautiful list of awards. It's the Golden Bay International Film Festival, which we have just won the Audience Choice Award in the USA, in Wisconsin, just a week ago. And I'm very happy that this film is being so well received, because you know, you start making a film, you have no idea how it will end up. You don't even know what is it all about. You have no idea how people will react to it, what people will feel about it, and what is it exactly that you're doing. I just followed my instincts, and I filmed more than 300 hours of materials in so many different places in the world where I was traveling with Dani Karavan. And at the end, if I shot 300 hours of materials, then 299 hours of them were thrown to the garbage, because the film at the end is only 1 hour. But this is the nature of documentary films. And if you already asked the $1 million question of Guernica, I have to tell you the truth. So this scene, which is the opening scene of the film, if you remember, in the Negev monument, which is one of the most important pieces of work that Dani has ever created, it is maybe the first scene of the film, but it is actually the last scene which was filmed. And the filming period was like 4 years long. And the reason why I choose this scene to be the first scene of the film, even though it was filmed as the last one, was because it contains all the different layers and all the different elements of the personality of Dani Karavan and of this beautiful creature called Dani Karavan. Because in this scene, in the Negev monument, which opens the film, you can see the love Dani has to the nature, to the landscape. You can see the tendency of Dani to be involved with politics. You can see that he's not young anymore and that he's troubled and bothered about it. You can get hint for this problem of losing the memory, starting to lose the memory. You can see the little hints of this sadomasochistic relationship I had with him when he's like making fun of me all the time. You can see how much he's bothered and troubled by the level of the maintenance, the quality of the maintenance of his work. You can see everything about him in this scene, and it's also funny and it's beautiful. So I decided to open the film with this, which made a lot of sense to me. At the end of this scene, Dani went to, I don't know, to pee, and we stayed alone, me and the cinematographer, who is also the co-director, Lukasz Konopa, a Polish guy living in Israel. And then Lukasz is coming to me and tells me, "You are a genius, Barak. You are a genius." And I said, "Why? What did they do? What was so genius about it?" And Lukasz is telling me, "How you pretend yourself, not knowing what is Guernica, just in order to create a beautiful documentary scene. You are genius. This is amazing. How could you think about it? To pretend like you don't know what Guernica is, just in order to piss Dani off. This is amazing." And then I looked at him and I tell him, "Lukasz, I'm sorry. I have to confess. I have to be honest with you. I have never heard about the Guernica. I'm sorry. I am not genius. I'm ignorant. It's two different things." And I think until nowadays, Lukasz doesn't believe me that I didn't hear about Guernica before I met Dani. Now I can tell you everything about Guernica, but it was all very authentic and it was all very honest.
You're very brave to admit that.
Yes.
That's wonderful. You anticipated about 10 of my questions, because I can tell you really love to talk about the film and about Dani. But what all of this really makes me wonder is, how did you get him to agree to do this film?
it wasn't so complicated, I have to say, and it is another funny, surprising, unexpected story, actually, because the story goes like this. At 2016, I believe, I was premiering a film I produced, which my brother Tomer has directed, called Mr. Gaga, about Ohad Naarin and the Batsheva Dance Company, which is based in Tel Aviv. And this film we premiered in a Festival di Popoli in Florence, Firenze, in Italy, in a very beautiful venue in front of like 1,200 viewers in the cinema. At the end of this screening, about a very beautiful, special Israeli artist called Ohad Naarin, the artistic director of Batsheva Dance Company, Noah Karavan, the daughter of Dani Karavan, she used to live in Italy, and at those days, she came to us, to me and to my brother, and told us, it's a beautiful film you created, Mr. Gaga, but what about my father? And we asked her, what do you mean, what about your father? We don't understand your question. Your father is your father, but what does it have to do with this film you have seen tonight? And she said, look, you made a beautiful film about Ohad Naarin. Why don't you make a film about my father, Dani Karavan? He's also a very special man, and he has also received the Israeli award, and he's also very colorful person. Why don't you make a film about him? And we didn't really know what to say. How can you answer this question? Why not to make a film about Dani Karavan? I don't know how to answer this question. And then someone is asking now from JCC Metro West if it's the same daughter in the film. No, it's another daughter, Noah Karavan. The daughter in the film is Tamar Karavan. And then we told her, well, we don't know, let's talk about it in Israel. And in Israel, my brother told me, you know what? I'm too busy with another project, but maybe you can go and check him out. Just go to his house, make a short interview with him and see if it's interesting for you or not. And for me, I was like, why to make a film about someone that I know so little about? I'm not connected to his art. I'm not connected to him. I don't know him. Like, why to make a film about him? But then I said, okay, sorry, I will go and check him out. I took a little camera. I went to his house and I had an interview with him, which was the easiest interview I have ever made in my life, because I didn't have to ask any question. For 3 hours, he kept on talking non-stop and non-stop with a very, very, very high and intense energy. And he was unbelievable. I fell in love with him. He was amazing. He was so angry and bitter, and at the same time, so sweet and generous and lovable. And I told myself, wow, if I have so many ambivalent feelings towards him, in this short interview, will I manage to create this kind of ambivalent sensation to the viewers of the film? If I manage to do so, it's going to be a beautiful film. And this is how it all started.
How familiar were you? I get the feeling that his name is not as known, or was not maybe before your film. And that's the question. What has your film done to raise awareness of Dani Karavan? But before, and it seems to me that he's not as well known as he deserves to be, at least by name. I know that I've been to several of the works in Israel and did not recognize the name. And now, you know, my admiration, all the things, I fell in love with him too. So thank you for that. So how has the film raised his visibility and the fact how much people know him, and how do they feel about him? Because he comes across with some very difficult points of view?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because in Israel, almost everybody in Israel have heard the name Dani Karavan. People know that Dani Karavan is a name, but many people don't exactly know what did he do. And I am the person who is the example for it. I always knew that Dani Karavan is a big artist. But if you would ask me 5 years ago, but what did he do? I would say, okay, maybe I would be able to say about the Negev Monument, this place which we opened the film with. But I don't think I could tell you much more. Maybe the culture square, not even sure about it. So in that way, the film had a great impact because many people in Israel, thanks to the film, got much better understanding of what is the work that Dani Karavan has created. And people enjoy the film very much. And I'm very proud to say that every person who is watching the film is experiencing something completely different. For some people, this film is all about getting old. For some people, this film is all about what is art. For some people, this film is all about who is the real Dani Karavan. For some people, the film is about Israel and politics in Israel. So I'm happy to realize that every viewer is experiencing the film in a different way. And this is for me a great compliment. And I've been traveling with this film in many different places inside of Israel and outside of Israel. And I'm proud of it because I believe Dani is really a true important figure in the Israeli art scene. And also for me, is a very unique person in the sense of allowing himself to be very honest with everybody and to be very transparent about his political agendas and not being afraid to say loud and clear everything he wants to say, which is nowadays something which is not very common.
We know there's a lot of divisiveness of political opinions in Israel, as there are in America. As a documentarian, going into this and understanding what his politics are, do you consider yourself a standard bearer, like somebody who's promoting his points of view and his political approaches to things? Or did you feel like just an objective observer?
I am not objective observer in neither one of my film. I don't believe in this objectiveness. I am not a journalist, I am a filmmaker, and I make films through my own eyes. And my own eyes are very particular. I am left-wing. I am what they call here in Israel extreme left-wing. On my left, there is only a wall. You can't go more left. And of course, I am very much attracted to any political issue, any political awareness or activity. So if someone else would make this film, maybe, for example, they would not go to this demonstration in Tel Aviv, where you can see Dani Karavan with Palestinian and Israeli flags, talking about how much horrible, racist is this national law that was passed in the Israeli government, in the Israeli parliament. Some other people would not give it a place in the film. But me and Dani, we were sharing the same kind of political point of view on reality, more or less. Dani was still a Zionist in a way. I don't even call myself a Zionist. So we did have some arguments between us about it, but still, as overview in the big picture, we are both part of the left area of the political map in Israel. And if someone else would make the film about Dani Karavan, maybe he would not, or she would not choose to end the film with this statement of him at the end of the wish, the desire to have peace and equalness, and to have the Palestinians receiving what they have to receive and having what they have to have. So a documentary film is not an objective action. Everything I decide to do in my film is coming from my heart. And I want to believe that what came from my heart got into your heart.
Yes. Okay, we have a comment, but it also brings up, but first I want to ask something to follow that. So was there pushback from, has there been a lot of negative reaction to the film?
No, I didn't receive almost any negative reactions to the film, because you know what? Even people who don't share the same political agenda like Dani and me, even people who are right-wing or are not as left as we are, I think could not reject the love and the appreciation to Dani's talent and personality. So it's I find it's impossible not to fall in love with Dani, even though he can be arrogant and even though he can be a pain in the ass. But he's also still very lovable and very generous and very sensitive and very sweet. And I think people react to it in a positive way. Someone was asking what happened to this monument in front of the Polin Jewish Museum in Poland. It never came to execution, to realization. I am now having a big problem with the Polish Film Institute, which was supposed to support the film with a big amount of money, and I also have a contract with them. But when they have seen the film, they thought that the film is anti-Polish, and this is why they don't want to deliver the money they have to deliver, according to my contract with them, because they believe the film is not fair and that is portraying Poland in a negative way, which is a complete rubbish for me, but what can I do?
Did you get a sense, and maybe it's in those hours of film that you had to discard? I hope you didn't really discard them. Maybe there's
no.
What was it like for him, or the people who commissioned artwork for him, seeing as he was so invested and his heart was in what he did, and he was so critical of upkeep, and that's where the high maintenance also comes in, or the lack of it. How did he even deal with the people who were commissioning the art? What kind of arguments must they have had? And how much did he have to compromise in order to deliver a finished product?
I don't think he had to compromise anything, because he never did anything he was not feeling complete with or happy about. The arguments he had were usually in regard to the condition of the work after some years, about the maintenance of it. This is something which drove him crazy and made him feel very, very, very sad. He never understood how comes those, I don't know, municipalities, those city halls, how comes they don't care enough about his work in order to supply better level of maintenance.
Wasn't that, Sarah Ann just asked a question. In contracting to create these massive works, one would have thought that that would be part of a contract, perpetual upkeep.
Yeah, so sometimes it was part of the contract, like it happened in Tel Aviv, in the White Square, if you remember, this beautiful place where it's quite in the beginning of the film when he's climbing the stairs and says that they should clean it, and he's upset with the guard downstairs. What about the water and everything? So he took the city hall of Tel Aviv to court, and he won. And they had to pay him quite a lot of money, and he used all this money in order to put it in a special kind of foundation for art in like monuments in Tel Aviv. So he got a lot of money in court from the municipality of Tel Aviv, but he didn't take it to his own pocket. He used it in order to keep the good maintenance of different kind of artworks all over Tel Aviv. Yeah.
Was the art, were his works better maintained outside of Israel as a rule, or just it was universal that he was unhappy?
It depends where. Like if you go to Germany or Japan, the maintenance of his work is amazing. If you go to other countries, it's so and so. But the sad thing is that the place where his art is in the lowest level of maintenance is actually Israel.
It's a chaval.
Mamash chaval.
You know, I wonder if you could talk a little about his feelings about nature and the environment, because sometimes it's nature and the environment that contributed to the less than perfect condition of his artwork. And it's interesting to think about that. And when he was complaining about the flowers that were planted, and sometimes and that he wouldn't put shade on some of the one of his works. So what
Well,
was,
he never had problems with the nature. He always had problems with the people. You know, he admired the nature. The nature was his best friend, and people. He was in a way very childish about it. If you like him and if you appreciate his work, he loves you. And if you're allowing yourself to criticize something about him, he's super upset with you. It's a funny thing, but
only if the criticism is wrong, but of course it's all wrong.
Yeah.
I thought that was very funny when he
Yes.
says that. So did he admire any other artists? Were there other whose work he changed?
He did admire many different kind of artists outside of Israel and inside of Israel. I don't necessarily remember all the names of them. And as you could understand from the film itself, I don't have such a great, deep knowledge about art. I love people. I love making films. I love making films about people. I learn about things while I'm making the film, but this film did not come out from my understanding or my appreciation to his work. This film came out on the base of my attraction to his personality. And while making this film, I learned how to love and appreciate and understand his beautiful way of creating pieces of art all over the world.
In that vein, Vicky had asked earlier, put in the chat, that she's seen his works in many countries and never made the connection until she saw the film, like a lot of us, I think. And her first impression was a comparison with Christo and Jean-Claude, for whom location was as important as for Dani Karavan. So maybe those are some artists that he at least felt a kinship to and admired their work, since there was something in common.
I guess so, but I cannot talk in his name. And as you probably know, Dani passed away a year ago in May, and I miss him terribly. I love him. He was a very good friend of mine. I feel very privileged to be his friend, to spend so much time with him. He's a very unique man, and you know, not so many people you can say about them that what you see is what you get, and their mouths and their hearts are one. And in that sense, I admired him because he would never manipulate you. He would always bring his truth and his feelings in front of you, whether you liked it or not. And this honesty and this way of being so transparent and authentic always is something very precious and very unusual.
It's carried to a greater height because he was an artist and because his works were so reflective of how he felt. You know, you could have felt the same way about somebody who was an engineer or someone, any profession, but he put it out there for the whole world to see. And I can't help but bring in a little personal note that when I saw Passagen in Portbou in Spain, I had been there, and I again came away knowing that an Israeli sculptor had created it, an Israeli artist had created it without remembering his name, and it was just an amazing representation of the hope and the fear. And, you know, this was a tribute to Walter Benjamin, who committed suicide escaping from the Nazis. He thought he was about to be captured and killed himself. And it's a very, very powerful work. So even though you talked about, you really related to the man, did you develop, do you have a favorite Dani Karavan work? Is there anything that struck you more than the others, or was it just the man and his work?
It's a great question, but the answer is being different every time. Because sometimes, like you, I admire passages of Walter Benjamin in Portbou in Spain as the most beautiful work of Dani Karavan. But then you go to France, to Cergy-Pontoise, and you see the Axe Majeur, this 3.5 kilometer long piece of work, and you are like, wow, astonished by this beauty. And then you go to the Negev monuments, and you are like, wow, this guy really knows how to talk to the nature. This guy really knows how to manipulate the nature. This guy really knows how to make love to the nature, like how he brings his inside world into the landscape. So the answer is changing all the time. And in a way, every time I go to one of his works, this is the work I love the most.
think you also have to mention that also invites people to really take part, enter into, climb on, become part of the artwork. So
Yeah,
that's part of the strength of what he did.
absolutely, absolutely.
So we have a couple of questions. Did you visit every work with him? And I don't know if the question means every work he ever did. I know that that's not what happened.
No, I was visiting a lot of works with him. Sometimes I sent Lukasz, the cinematographer and the co-director, without me. But one thing which we understood quite at the beginning of the filmmaking process was that going to film his work without him being inside of it, for us is pointless and boring. I don't care to film his work if I don't experience it and if I don't feel it through his point of view. And whenever I go with him to one of his works, it's always interesting and funny and sad because first, he's always calling Chava, his wife, always. So this is kind of a repeating scenario, a repeating ritual, which I find beautiful. And second, he's always getting upset with the level of the maintenance of his work. And when you see it repeating itself, then it becomes part of his life, part of his heart, part of his journey.
This may be that may have been the answer to a general question that I have and that somebody else just asked, if when he was complaining about the colors of the flowers that were planted. What does the future hold now for his works that are in existence? You talked about the one in Tel Aviv and the fact that a lawsuit was brought, but he can't bring lawsuits, or his estate can't bring lawsuits all over the world. Are there new agreements for the upkeep and for protection? What happened to the housing project in Nitzana, by the way?
Nitzana is still the same, nothing really have changed. And his daughter Noah, the one who actually in a way initiated this whole film, you can see her a little bit in the film in Nuremberg in Germany. She's now working hard in order to make sure that the maintenance of his work all over the world is being somehow kept in a decent level. It's a very tough job, and for sure she won't be able to fulfill it in a perfect way, but she is spending a lot of time trying to make sure that all those beautiful pieces of art will keep being alive in somehow okay condition.
Did he leave any designs that can be carried out posthumously?
Yes, yes, absolutely. For every piece of his work.
We'll be seeing new Dani Caravans someday.
No. I thought you are asking something different. I thought if you're asking that if he left the, I don't know, sketches, the drawings of each work, so people know how to maintain it.
That too, but also anything new.
No, it didn't leave any new drawings of plans of new works, but he left nearly 100 beautiful works of him all over the world. So I think it's quite enough. Like, you do feel him in this universe.
Somebody wanted to know if there's a book of his works that's been published.
Yes. If you go to his website, danikaravan.com, you can learn a lot about him and about all different ways to get close to his work.
did he get to see any rough cut of the film at all?
He saw the whole film. He saw the final cut of the film in December 2020. He just turned to be 90 when the film came out. And when he watched it for the first time, he said to me something that Chava, his wife, told me later, that she has never heard him saying anything like that to anyone in any kind of context. And it was the sentence which he told me after watching the film. He said, Barak, I would not change a thing in your film. And for me, it was like, wow, the greatest achievement I could dream of.
Even the doctor's visits, huh?
Yes.
Somebody, there was just a question. I didn't want to leave anybody's questions out. Are there plaques at all the sites that identify them as?
Excuse me?
Are there plaques, are there signs at the sites identifying, since he didn't sign his work?
No, it didn't change.
No. Okay. We'll have to carry out, we'll all have to visit his work and make proclamations.
Exactly. You should. You should. You should.
Were there any that struck you that you didn't include in the film?
If there is what?
Were there any that you had to leave out that you think are particularly also worth visiting? There's all seem to be wonderful.
Well, there was one that was it called Reflections. It was in Katowice in Poland, and it was like a full house of mirrors that he created, but in opposite of all of his works, which supposed to be there forever, this one was for only a few months in the museum. And that was breaking his heart because it was so beautiful, and the ideas of stopping this experience to the people was driving him crazy, but that's life. But no, I think I put in the film, the one piece of work of him that I wished and I desired so much to film and to go there with Dani was in Japan. But he was not in the condition anymore to fly to Japan. I really wanted to go there, but we could not. And I think it's a shame, but at least I was able to put some stills photo inside.
Can we ask you what you're working on now?
Of course.
Please.
I am making a new film about ultra-Orthodox Jewish people, Jewish kids in Bnei Brak, the largest ultra-Orthodox Jewish city in Israel, practicing capoeira. And I'm very much into this story. And also I became, just a couple of months ago, the head of the film department of the academic college of Bet Berl, which is outside of Tel Aviv. So I'm quite busy.
Well, sounds like wonderful projects that you have going on. Are there any other questions from anybody? Then I will thank you. And again, Mazal Tov on this wonderful film. We really, really loved it. And for sharing so many of your ideas with us today.
Thank you, Barak. Thank you, Abby. Thank you for bringing Dani to us. Was a great look into his life and his personality. It really came across.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.